Have you ever prayed and then wondered if your words really connected with God? Maybe you closed your eyes, bowed your head, and whispered your deepest concerns. You tried your best to share your heart, yet something still felt off. You finish praying, open your eyes and think, did God actually hear me? Or was I just talking into thin air? Prayer can sometimes feel confusing. On the surface, it might look like you simply talk to God. But many of us have discovered that it's not always that straightforward. We might do all the usual steps, fold our hands, speak our requests, yet walk away feeling the same stress or worry we started with. That leads us to wonder, am I missing something? Why is my prayer life not bringing me closer to God or giving me more peace? Sometimes well-meaning people make small but dangerous mistakes in prayer without realizing it. These errors aren't usually made out of a bad heart. Instead, they happen when people haven't been taught certain truths about prayer. Over time, these habits can drain the joy and power from talking to God. What should be refreshing and uplifting can become dry, frustrating, or even discouraging. We'll talk about specific mistakes you might be making in your prayers. Some mistakes are tied to misunderstandings. Some come from everyday habits that slip into our routine, and some come from not really knowing what prayer is meant to be. The good news is, we're also going to explore how to fix each mistake. By making a few changes, you can move toward a kind of prayer that brings growth, calm, and a much closer walk with God. One common mistake is seeing God as distant, stern, or uninterested in everyday life. You might picture him like a strict ruler in a faraway palace, or maybe you think he's too grand to care about your small concerns. As a result, your prayers can feel rigid, as if you must say holy-sounding words. You might hold back your real feelings, or you might avoid praying when you're upset, assuming God wouldn't want to hear that. Yet many faith traditions describe God as a caring parent who longs for a close relationship with his children. When you understand this, prayer takes on a different tone. Instead of delivering a formal speech, you can share your hopes, fears, joys, and struggles naturally, like talking to a trusted mentor or kind father. Here is how to fix it. Change how you see God. Remind yourself often that he loves you and wants to hear from you. This might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you've grown up thinking God only watches from a distance. But over time, repeating the truth that he cares can soften your approach to prayer. Use everyday language. If you're sad, say, God, I'm sad. If you're thankful, say, God, thank you for these blessings today. Speak as though you're talking to someone who wants to understand you, not someone who is too busy to care. Picture a warm conversation. Some people find it helpful to imagine sitting in a cozy room, speaking with a loving father figure. This mental picture can help you open your heart without fear or pretense. Another mistake is to treat prayer as a long speech or shopping list of requests. You might sit down to pray and instantly start telling God all your worries, problems, and needs. Then, after you're done, you say, Amen, and move on with your day. While talking to God is an important part of prayer, it's not the entire story. Prayer can also include moments of silence or reflection, giving space for God's gentle prompting or fresh ideas. Here is how to fix it. Build pauses into your prayer. After you share your concerns, stop and breathe. Pay attention to any thoughts that arise or any sense of calm you feel. Even if you don't hear anything specific, the pause can help center your mind. Use short scripture readings to guide your thoughts. Pick a verse that speaks to you, read it slowly, and sit quietly for a minute. See if it stirs anything in your heart or mind. This can be a simple way to bring listening into your prayer routine. Accept that not every prayer moment will be filled with big revelations. Sometimes you'll sense a specific comfort or direction, sometimes you won't. The key is to consistently open yourself to the possibility of hearing from God instead of doing all the talking. Some people see prayer as a constant apology session. They begin every time by listing all the things they did wrong and may never move past that stage. While being honest about our shortcomings is important, living under a cloud of guilt prevents us from tasting the peace and freedom that comes when we believe in grace. You might think you're being humble, but in truth, you're not letting yourself accept the love and forgiveness that is offered. If your prayers always revolve around "I'm not worthy" and never shift to "thank you for forgiveness" or "I believe you can change me," you can get stuck feeling hopeless. That can lead to despair, making you wonder if prayer does any good at all. Here is how to fix it. Give yourself a time limit for apologies. If you need to say "I'm sorry," do it genuinely but briefly. Then shift your attention to hope and trust. Remember that growth is a process, but it's a real one. You're not locked into your past mistakes. Remind yourself that grace is bigger than your failings. Many spiritual teachings say that God's mercy is available to anyone who asks. Accept it and let yourself move forward, focusing on building a better future rather than reliving your past constantly. Practice gratitude. After acknowledging your slip-ups, thank God for His patience and help. Gratitude fosters a healthier view of yourself and your relationship with the divine. It's normal to pray most passionately when something goes wrong, when you're in pain, scared, or desperate. But if crisis prayers are the only kind you ever offer, your spiritual life might become lopsided. There's more to life than emergencies, and if you talk to God only when you're in trouble, you miss out on sharing joys, relief, curiosity, wonder, or everyday gratitude. Prayer can include the whole range of feelings and seasons in life. It can be about joy, excitement, confusion, anger, gratitude, or anything else you're experiencing. Think of a close friendship. You wouldn't only call your friend when you were sad. You'd also call when you were celebrating good news or just want to chat. Treat prayer the same way. Here is how to fix it. Make a simple emotion checklist. Before you pray, note how you're feeling. Are you anxious, joyful, tired? Then talk to God about that. Say, "God, I'm grateful for the sunshine today," or "I'm worried about my test results." Celebrate small blessings. If you had a nice conversation with a neighbor or you enjoyed a really good meal, mention it. This helps your prayer life feel more natural and full. If you tend to avoid prayer when life is good, challenge yourself. Even if you think there's nothing urgent to pray about, spend a moment saying thanks or just telling God about your day. Have you ever thought, if I do this good deed, then God must answer my prayer the way I want? That's a transactional view, like you're making a deal. While it's normal to ask God for help, the problem comes when you start believing prayer is a business agreement. You give God something and He gives you exactly what you want in return. True prayer is about closeness with God, not about scoring points or striking deals. When you pray only to get something, you might end up feeling cheated if things don't go the way you asked. It can lead to bitterness or the idea that prayer doesn't work. Here is how to fix it. Remember, it's about the bond, not the bargain. The main purpose of prayer is to draw near to God. It's a chance to share your heart, seek guidance, and learn to trust Him more. Accept that God's ways can be different. Sometimes the answer you want isn't the best outcome in the long run. Ask God to shape your desires so they align more with His wisdom. Thank God for who He is, not just what He gives. Spend part of your prayer praising God's character, His kindness, creativity, patience, instead of only listing what you hope He'll do for you. Some people change their entire way of speaking when they pray. They use words like thou and thee, or adopt a very formal tone. If this style is natural for you, that's fine. But if it feels forced, maybe it's what you heard growing up, or you think you must sound that way to be taken seriously. It can prevent genuine connection. God cares more about your heart than your fancy words. When you use language that doesn't reflect who you really are, you might start feeling like you're putting on a show. That can distance you from the honest communication prayer is supposed to be. Here is how to fix it. Speak as you speak to a good friend. If you're casual, pray casually. If you're more formal in everyday life, that can carry over too. The key is to be consistent with who you truly are. Check your motives. If you find yourself using big words or old phrases, ask yourself if this helps your heart express itself, or if you're just copying what you think you should say. Focus on honesty rather than perfection. You don't need to sound poetic. Simple, heartfelt words can often move you closer to God than long, dramatic sentences. It's normal to call out to God when something goes wrong, like losing a job, facing an illness, or dealing with family trouble. The mistake is to only pray during these hard times and ignore prayer when things are fine. If all your prayers are frantic pleas, you never learn to simply be with God or express thankfulness for what's going right. Ignoring gratitude can rob you of seeing how many blessings fill your life each day. It can also make prayer feel like a 911 call rather than a constant source of comfort and companionship. How to fix it? Set aside a part of your prayer time for giving thanks. Even if you can only think of one good thing that happened, start with that. Over time, you'll notice more and more blessings. Make a short gratitude list every night. These can be very small things like, I had a good cup of tea, or a friend sent me a kind message. Mention these in prayer. Remember that a heart of thankfulness can lift your mood and make you more aware of God's kindness, even in trials. We live in a world full of constant noise. Phones buzz with alerts, TVs or radios play in the background, and daily tasks flood our minds. Trying to pray in this environment can be tough. You might sit down, start praying, and then your phone pings, or you recall an errand you forgot. Before you know it, you're no longer focused on talking to God. You're making tomorrow's to-do list in your head. If this happens repeatedly, your prayer time can become rushed or disjointed. You might end up feeling annoyed with yourself or guilty because you couldn't maintain focus. But the good news is that you can take steps to limit those distractions. Here is how to fix it. Put away devices. Consider placing your phone on silent or in another room. If you're worried about an emergency, set up a short window of prayer time where it's unlikely you'll be disturbed. Choose a calmer setting. If possible, find a quiet corner in your home or even sit outside in the yard. A place without a TV or other people moving around might help you focus. When distractions pop up in your mind, gently move them aside. You can tell yourself, I'll think about that after I'm done praying. Over time, this practice will become more natural. Some people seem to pray with great emotion or use flowery, poetic words. Others might be able to quote lots of Bible verses or speak with a confident tone. It's easy to feel inadequate when you compare yourself to them. You might think, I can't pray like that. Maybe my prayers aren't as good, but each person has a unique way of connecting with God. One person might cry easily while praying, another might be quiet and reflective. One might have a gift for words, another might speak very simply. None of these styles is better as long as they're genuine. Here is how to fix it. Embrace your natural style. If you speak plainly, that's great. If you prefer a heartfelt but shorter approach, that's fine too. God knows your heart and appreciates your honesty. Celebrate variety. Instead of feeling threatened when you see someone else praying in a different way, realize that it shows how diverse people are. You might even learn something from them without copying them exactly. Keep your eyes on growth, not comparison. If you want a deeper prayer life, focus on being more open or more regular in your prayers. Don't waste energy trying to match someone else's style or intensity. In our modern world, we're used to getting things quickly: fast food, quick internet searches, next-day deliveries. We can bring that mindset into prayer, expecting immediate changes or clear signs. When answers don't show up right away, we might assume God isn't listening or that prayer is ineffective. However, many spiritual traditions teach that some prayers take time. Some aspects of our journey might need slow growth, or there could be unseen factors at work. If you stop praying too soon, you might miss the subtle ways God is guiding you or shaping your circumstances over a longer period. How to fix it? See prayer as part of a relationship that unfolds over time. Good relationships aren't built in a day. They grow through regular communication and trust. Remember that no or wait can be valid answers. Not every request is fulfilled the way we want. Sometimes a delay can lead you to a better outcome than you originally asked for. Keep track of past prayers. Write them down in a journal. Over months or years, you might realize that an answer came in a different form, or that you changed in a way that made sense of why you didn't get what you initially requested. Some people pray for peace, but stir up conflict in their personal lives. They might ask God to bless their finances, but keep making irresponsible money choices. They might say they want to grow closer to God, but never open a spiritual book or attend a gathering that nurtures faith. When your words in prayer clash with your day-to-day behavior, you create an inner conflict. Deep down, you know you're not living in line with what you're asking for, which can undermine your confidence in prayer. Here is how to fix it. Conduct a quick self-check. If you're praying for healing in a relationship, are you willing to forgive or ask for forgiveness? If you're praying for help with finances, are you also budgeting and avoiding wasteful spending? Let prayer guide your actions. When you sense an area where you need to change, ask God for help, then make practical steps in that direction. This unity between prayer and action can strengthen your faith and make your prayers more heartfelt. Remember that none of us is perfect. The goal isn't to be flawless before you pray, but to be honest about how you live and willing to adjust your habits so they match what you're asking for in prayer. A related mistake is when people pray about a problem but refuse to do their part to fix it. For instance, you might pray for a new job but never send out resumes. Or you might pray for good health but neglect exercise or a balanced diet. While prayer can bring breakthroughs, it's often meant to work hand in hand with our choices and efforts. But here is how to fix it. Ask yourself, what step can I take today? If you're praying for financial stability, maybe your step is to cut unnecessary expenses or look for extra work. If you're praying for better health, it might be scheduling a doctor's appointment or walking round the block daily. Ask God for wisdom on your role. It's possible you're not sure what you need to do. That's okay. Bring that uncertainty to prayer. God, I want to be responsible, but I'm not sure where to start. Please guide me. Then look for practical hints or open doors. Team up prayer with work. Approaching life's problems with both spiritual dependence and personal discipline can bring more visible results. Instead of passively waiting, you become a partner in the process of change. It's easy to pray here and there, especially when a crisis pops up or you remember randomly. But then weeks pass, and you realize you haven't prayed at all. This on and off pattern can keep your spiritual life shallow. Like any important relationship or skill, consistent practice typically leads to deeper connection and understanding. How to fix it? Pick a specific time, whether it's first thing in the morning, during lunch break, or before bedtime. Let that moment be your prayer time. Even if it's just 5 minutes, the consistency can help prayer become a normal part of your day. Use reminders. Set an alarm on your phone or place a sticky note where you'll see it. This might feel silly at first, but these small prompts can help you remember to pause and pray. Don't be discouraged by dry spells. Sometimes you'll feel very close to God. Other times it may feel like you're going through the motions. Consistency keeps the communication line open so that when real breakthroughs happen, you're there to receive them. Some people assume that there's only one correct posture for prayer, kneeling, eyes closed, hands folded, or they think they must pray out loud for it to count. Others might believe they have to journal every prayer. But we're all different. What helps one person focus might distract another. If you force yourself to pray in a style that feels unnatural, you might end up disliking prayer or avoiding it altogether. How to fix it? Experiment with different forms. Try silent prayer with your eyes open, or walk in nature while quietly talking to God in your thoughts. Some people love writing out their prayers, while others prefer speaking them. Give yourself permission to find what truly helps you connect. Check your comfort level. If you're physically uncomfortable kneeling, don't do it. If you find you focus better lying down or sitting in a soft chair, that's okay. Respecting your own body and mind can make the experience more positive. Remember, the goal is honest communion. The outward method is less important than the inward sincerity. Whether you stand, kneel, write, or speak softly, the real question is, am I speaking from the heart? Finally, many people struggle with harsh self-talk. The moment they start to pray, a voice inside says, "You're doing this wrong," or "God doesn't want to hear you again," or "This is silly, you're just talking to yourself." Such thoughts can make you freeze or feel foolish, causing you to cut your prayer short. Over time, you might avoid prayer out of fear that you sound dumb or that God is tired of you. How to fix it? Recognize those thoughts as intrusions. They are not facts. They're just mental chatter, often rooted in insecurity or past experiences. Try labeling them, "That's my fear talking," or "That's my self-doubt voice." Then continue your prayer anyway. Affirm the truth. Remind yourself that God is patient and loving. Remind yourself that many people in the Bible or in history prayed with mistakes, tears, or confusion, and yet found help. Practice kindness toward yourself. If you stumble over words or lose your train of thought, it's not the end of the world. You can simply say, "God, I'm getting distracted, but I still want to talk with you," and keep going. Sometimes the simplest action, like speaking honestly about what's on your mind, can reignite a spark in your prayers. Remember, these mistakes are common, and you might notice more than one in your life. Don't be discouraged. Each one offers a chance to learn and to deepen your approach to prayer. There's no single formula for perfect prayer, but avoiding these pitfalls can open the door for a more genuine experience. The key is to remain open, honest, and willing to adapt. Once you recognize where things might be going wrong, you can take simple, practical steps to change. And as you do, you'll likely see prayer become more meaningful, comforting, and ultimately transformative in your daily life. Remember, the journey of prayer is not about ticking boxes or meeting a strict standard. It's about growing day by day, sharing your honest feelings, and giving yourself space to learn and improve. Whenever you notice one of these mistakes creeping in, see it as an invitation to reset and try again. The more you practice a heartfelt, open style of prayer, one that fits who you truly are, the more you'll find prayer becoming a reliable source of comfort, wisdom, and strength in your everyday life. Prayer isn't about perfection, it's about authentic communication, being honest with yourself and open with the one who truly knows you. Even if you've been stumbling over some of these mistakes for years, Don't be discouraged. Real transformation can happen with a willing heart and consistent practice. As you adapt your approach, you'll find that prayer becomes more than a ritual. It becomes a genuine relationship that supports you through every season of life. Now that you've reflected on the common barriers and ways to overcome them, you may be ready for a moment of prayer, one that's heartfelt, open, and grounded in the hope that real change is possible. Before you begin, take a quiet moment to gather your thoughts. Remember, prayer is not a performance. It's simply you, coming as you are, ready to be honest and to listen. Let this prayer be an invitation to draw closer, to lay down any burdens, and to open yourself to the growth that awaits. God, I come to you now with an honest heart and a willing spirit. In the areas where I've allowed worry, distraction, or doubt to take over, I ask for clarity and fresh perspective. Thank you for being a loving presence who wants more than my routines or rehearsed words. You want my genuine self. Help me to trust that even my simplest, most unpolished prayers matter. Where I've treated prayer as a transaction, teach me to seek true relationship, to be grateful in good times, patient in waiting, and persistent when life feels heavy. Show me how to pray with honesty rather than performance, to listen for your guidance rather than speaking all the time, and to embrace grace instead of lingering in guilt. As I offer my deepest hopes and struggles to you, give me courage to act where I can and faith to release what I cannot control. May my prayers become a daily refuge, drawing me closer to you and transforming how I see myself and the world around me. Amen.